period. We have hit on policy here and there, but today we're confronting it head on. The reason that we talk about that we don't really go too much into the policy question, well, given causes of crime, what should we do? The reason for that is because most theories don't provide us with a clear roadmap as to what. Here's an example of it. This is an example of a very famous criminological mystery. It's a criminological mystery. The Cambridge Analytica study is a criminological mystery to be sure. It was a state that was done law contracts. The 1930s and Massachusetts came to Massachusetts. And it involved a sample of several hundred boys, only male, several hundred boys, half were assigned to as if it was an experiment. Half were assigned to a treatment group, and then half were assigned to a control group, just like an experiment. And the treatment, the experimental treatment, involved basically access to all different kinds of programming and like seemingly beneficial things like counseling, tutoring, extracurricular activities, psychiatric care, substance use care, whatever they can be, right? All these types of resources that thrown at these supplier kids. The other is the control group basically got nothing in the sense that they received things at like normal childhood experience. And they were merely asked to check in with the researchers at the same time they did the check-ins with those who received these third treatment. So all of these things, based on the theories that we know of and the theories that were developed in the field since the 1930s, all of these things are expected to be beneficial. Like, of course, the kids in the treatment group were going to fare better, but that's the opposite of what the kids who got all of the stuff, all of the attention, all of the care, all of the activities, all of the counseling and the tutoring, their outcomes were consistently worse than those who got nothing. They were worse off in terms of their delinquency, in terms of their them skills, like across the board, they were worse off rather than better. What the actors know, right? What are we supposed to think? Several folks have, including Governor Morgan, very famous social psychologist and criminologist, have proposed potential explanation why this criminological mystery emerged. We wrote down. That is a great. Here's called down. I'm not gonna talk about it. I'll just giving some thought. Read a little bit about it, and then yeah, actually have a good community. Give it some thought. That's a really interesting question. All of these things are supposed to make these kids' lives better, but they didn't. They seem to make things, why was that? Long-term insurance. Why was that? A really good question. And maybe this criminological mystery points us to the reality that how theory and policy are related is pretty tenuous all the time. Most of the theories that we talk about don't really provide us with a roadmap. They don't tell us what we're supposed to do. That's clearly the case for theories and perspectives that emphasize things like personality traits, even low self-control, which is a disorder of personality. Like, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to target low self-control? How are we supposed to improve parenting on like a macro level, on a societal level? How are we supposed to improve parent-child relations? So what's philosophical theory do? And how the justice system is supposed to interact, what we're supposed to do. And except for two that we've talked about that have really clear policy implications, most theories fail in this regard. The usefulness criteria, most of the theories that we've talked about, is a little bit lacking typically. So the two theories that we talked about that, in contrast, seem to have the clearest policy implications. Again, some have, it's a sliding scale. There's some that have at least some policy, routine activities. But labeling theory and deterrence theory in particular have really clear policy. So much so that we talked about. For deterrence theory, let's make punishments swifter, certain, and severer, right? For labeling theory, we need to be really careful about labeling people. So let's Let's decriminalize behaviors. Let's figure out how we can reduce jail and prison population. Maybe we should even call it minor forms of this behavior, yeah, kind of like radical non-intervention. Those are policy implications that clearly emerge out of these two theories that we talked about. Again, most don't provide us with that kind of roadmap. We also don't know what policies are going to be effective. This is a finding in the article. What are we supposed to do? We did the thing that made intuitive sense, but why didn't it work? Sometimes theories don't provide us with a clear sort of from a microscope to be able to understand exactly what went wrong. That's really problematic. Theories are attempting to understand and help explain human behavior, but if they fail in that regard, that's a really bad sign. Most of the time when we're talking about criminal justice policy and its correspondence with theory, we're talking about decision points, clear key points of contact between the individual offender and the criminal justice system. As we talked about actually, crime policy may be family policy. It may be a labor policy. Talk extensively about crime and work. You can make that argument. You can make the argument that crime policy is akin to like other social structures, American dream, all of that stuff. But what we're mostly here in criminal justice policy, we're talking about key points of contact. Key points of contact between the essential offender and the justice system and what those look like. Now, essentially, this is not an intro to CJ class, but the two key points of contact that we're mostly interested in are the arrest stage and then like the conviction and punishments. There's a lot that happens before arrest, there's a lot that happens between arrest and conviction and punishment. And then there are things that happen after punishment, certainly. So those two key points of contact are most of the time what we're thinking. So the perspectives that we're going to be talking about, the kinds of theoretical issues, relate to those two key points of contact. We're going to talk first about arrest and its correspondence with broken windows perspective, some of which you're probably familiar with. And then the collateral consequences of felony conviction and the accompanying prison experience for a good number of people. So this is a little bit of background. It's not a policing class. I'm also not a policing scholar. So if you have really in-depth questions about models of policing and how those are evolving over time, especially more recently, I am not the person to ask. However, in general, prior to the 1980s, policing in the U.S. is characterized by that's called the standard model of policing. The standard model of policing is more or less a one-size-fits-all application of reactive rather than proactive policing strategy. It involves a few key characteristics, the standard model of policing. When there is crime, sort of in general, which there always is, we're just going to sort of generally increase police force size and randomly distribute police patrol to all different parts of the community. It's going to be reactive rather than proactive. So we're really concerned about having rapid calls for service, but those are calls for service, not proactively going out and trying to like find crimes in progress, for example. It's entirely reactive rather than proactive. It also needs to be careful for a variety of reasons to ensure that the application of resources are rather uniform. So what you might imagine is that it's not really how policing is done. But all of this really work. The standard model of police seem to not all that expensive. They tend to not be all that common. They tend to not actually do anything they were doing. And alternatives have emerged, clearly emerging since the 1980s and has become, well, it's become very multifaceted with all different shapes and elements of it, but it's called problem-oriented. And problem-oriented policing is more proactive rather than reactive. Goal is to target the source of crime rather than simply responding. It is as a sort of set of principles and a set of strategies It's based on the assumption that we can target resources to specific areas, specific populations. Those areas that have the most crime, areas that have the most disorder, are going to be the ones that are going to give us basically the best return on the investment. They're going to provide the biggest bang for the buck in terms of police resources. So instead of just randomly assigning police officers to all different kinds of areas and neighborhoods, instead be really, really careful and judicious about where we're directing resources to where they're most. This idea really emerged in correspondence with computer technology, which allowed crime mapping to happen. Began in the 1980s. So now we can consider, in light of basically this new tool that we have to be able to find out where crime happens, where crime seems to happen. Now we can model using computer technology where the problem areas are. And then we can make predictions, we can make assumptions, we can basically do a kind of like scientific crime analysis in a sense, trying to figure out where those resources are going to be most needed. That can allow us to draw conclusions about the motivations of the victims, characteristics of victims, characteristics of specific areas. And a lot of these can be already anecdotal, but it makes it much more standardized and robust and, in a sense, scientific in all kinds of senses and more rational as a result. I did a ride along along these lines. I did a ride along with both the DPS trooper and the police officer. And both were very different. But the Houston police officer, it was like an 8-hour shift. I was there for the entire 8-hour shift. I had all different kinds of stories about it. Actually, history, but what I really interesting. But like adjacent to a rough area, Antoine Drive, and we were trying. I wasn't in like the beats and their adjacent beats. I own the costs at the beat, but even though it was Saturday night, and he said that mostly what we were going to be doing was like if I'm part of the team, like something like that. So he was like, "Let's go," and like help out in their office. Sure, that's what I was doing. He was like, "This complex is a real problem because stuff happens in this apartment complex, and exclusively this apartment complex, that just makes it this like unique social phenomenon in itself." And so, for example, what happened is like, I'm gonna get the story wrong, but it was like a girl stabbed someone in the apartment complex. She was young, like and so she stabbed someone in the apartment complex. And so she got arrested and went to jail and eventually came back. And then what happened was she returned, like the residents came together and like stabbed her. In for revenge for like stabbing. I sort of it's not made it's not. But I don't think the initial stabbing is fatal either. It's sort of like a vigilante justice. So wild stuff happens. And so humans tend to know sort of where these areas are. But crime mapping software allows departments to do this in a far more systematic way. To identify places like this apartment complex where wild stuff like that seems to. So this led to a shift in policing strategies in the 1980s and the 1990s. There are all different kinds of problem-oriented policing strategies that we could talk about as policing problem. And there's all kinds of controversies to value those kinds of we'll most talking about the theory. And the theory that's closely related to problem-oriented policing is called broken windows. And this is a reading that was in mind. Okay. This is the focus of the reading by Wilson. So basically the back windows. So it's a useful. We have 15 points spoken in the beginning of our. The first is that patrols rather than hunting cars. Right? Foot patrol used to be quite common But they sort of fell out of favor a little bit, not because they were